Yeah, I did a lot of, because that was what you'd do. It'd be 11 o'clock. You'd start writing, and, you'd make sure you had a couple packs of Marlboros, Reds. And, you'd make sure you had a couple 6-packs of Sam Adams because it was Boston, so it was cheaper.
I have a kind of a crazy idea. What if you found one of these papers,
Uh-oh.
printed it out, and then edited your paper as you would if you were a teacher with red ink, just like X whole pages or like just write like underline, write colloquial or
Yeah.
like
Oh
all
my
those
God.
things.
Question marks.
Yeah.
Colloquial.
What is this?
My favorite was getting colloquial. I don't remember. I'd gotten that on so many papers that I finally
Yeah.
was like, what does this mean? Looked it up. Didn't know what it meant. And like, I swear it was 3 semesters before I got off my ass and like didn't have a dictionary at home. Went to the Mugar Library on BU's main campus and looked it up. I'm like, oh, that's what colloquial means. What's wrong with colloquial? Yeah.
But that would be funny though if you edited your paper like
Oh
you were
my
a
God.
teacher.
It would be torture. Like reading my own work is just the fucking worst.
It is
Just
the worst.
can't.
It's the worst.
Like, even if you know objectively that you did well,
Yeah.
going back and reading it, it's just all I can see is just like comma out of place, shouldn't
Mhm.
why did I go to the thesaurus word on that? Why didn't I just use, cow? I can't think of instead of bovine,
I was just thinking that. But then at the end of the paper you have to write see me after class.
Somewhere in the middle of Arizona, you painted a desert and called it my home. You made it.
Welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Megan Kearns. I'm a freelance writer and critic, editor of Bitchflix, and a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
My name is Dave Riedel. I write for Salt Lake City Weekly, Orlando Weekly. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association as well.
And my name is Evan Crean. I'm editor for The Independent. I'm co-chair of BAFCA and co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living.
So this week, we're going to talk about a couple of films. We're going to talk about Just Mercy and 1917.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That is a thing that's happening.
Yes. It's January. Things are kind of slow.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I like about movies that have titles like Just Mercy is you could say that it could be implied to mean so many different things like Just Mercy?
Yeah.
Just Mercy. Just Mercy.
Yes.
You
It's true.
Mhm.
I was just thinking the same thing, actually.
Just Mercy.
All right, well, since we're talking about it,
Yeah.
let's start with Just
Oh,
Mercy.
Okay. I was just making dumb jokes, but all right. I'll talk about Just Mercy because I watched it yesterday or maybe 2 nights ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was good. I liked it.
I watched it this morning. I also liked it.
Yeah.
I saw it in like November, but I liked it.
Well, this is what's kind of fascinating about this movie. It's like you see it. And when I say you see it, it's like what I mean is you hear about it or you read about it and you think, okay, huge stars.
Yes.
Jamie Foxx, Brie Larson.
Michael B. Jordan.
Would we call Brie Larson a star? Look, this
I
is
think yes.
This is
now.
a side debate.
Yes, now
Yes.
because of Captain Marvel, without question, she's a star.
Room.
Are Marvel
Yeah, she's an
stars-
Oscar-winning actress.
Absolutely.
No.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying. Look, hey man, F. Murray Abraham is an Oscar-winning actor. Is he ever a
He's-
star?
No,
Okay.
no,
So,
no. But I think Brie Larson is now. I do.
follow up.
Ooh, yes.
Because you are in a top-grossing Marvel movie, does that make you a star? Can Chris Evans sell anything besides Captain America? You see what I'm saying?
Oh, but I love.
I love Chris Evans.
I love Chris Evans,
I
and
have
I
always
loved
liked
his
Chris Evans.
directorial debut.
Yeah.
I did too. The one with Alice Eve.
Before we go, yes.
So good.
Oh my god, I love that movie, and
Yeah.
I feel like I'm the only person who watched it, so I'm so excited. that
I'm
you
right.
watched it
I watched
too.
it with you, sister.
It's so good.
Yep.
It's so underrated. Anyway,
I'm so happy you guys are having this moment.
Me too. It's a Chris Evans love fest.
By
I
the way,
love it.
Just Mercy is great. So anyway,
back to Just Mercy.
no, but I mean that's my thing. Brie
Yeah.
Larson, and she plays she's like the second banana in this movie.
she is. Yep.
Yeah, I
which-
would argue she doesn't have a lot to do, and I
No.
feel like that kind of comes through. I didn't think she was bad. I just didn't feel like she was given much to do, and therefore her character was not very memorable. For me,
Right.
the performance wasn't all that memorable, but just because her role in the movie seemed like it was so.
Sure.
ancillary.
I do think that she did the most with what she was given, which was not a lot.
She did a lot with that wig.
She did. But I will say one of the things I liked about her role is I like that she is saying in the film, the conversation she has with Michael B. Jordan playing Brian Stevenson, where she says, I will never know what you're going through when it comes to racism and,
She does
Yeah.
say that. That's
brutality.
true.
And she's like, but I want to, she doesn't say I want to be supportive, but she essentially says that.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I love that she also says, when she gets a bomb threat in her house and Michael B. Jordan says, you can step away at any time. I totally understand. And she's like, I wouldn't be able to look at my son and, I need to be able to look at my son and say I had to stand up for what was right, no matter how scared I was. And so she has a couple really great moments, even though other than that, she's not really given much to do. But I kind of was okay with that because this is a film about the prison industrial complex being shitty, about executions being shitty, and about, Black people being oppressed.
Yeah.
So I was okay that her as a
Sure.
white person was...
Yeah, it's not her story.
Exactly.
She is a really good ally, though, to your point.
Yes.
She is, yeah. And a movie like this needs somebody, when Thurgood Marshall needs Josh Gad.
Yeah. I see what you're saying here.
I don't remember his character's name. Otherwise, I would have, But so,
Get me a likable white person, please.
yeah. So no, I didn't even mean that. I just mean you need
No, I'm
somebody
just
who's kind
kidding.
of funnier to take all the weight off this fucking serious as fuck role that you're
Right.
playing.
Right.
Right.
And it is heavy subject matter.
Absolutely.
Two things I wanted to say about the Brie Larson thing. One, we didn't answer whether she's a movie star. But two,
I said yes.
I don't remember what the second thing was. So let's talk about the movie. Evan, it sounded like you were going to say something.
No.
Oh,
No, I liked this movie, and I think in comparison to another wrongful conviction movie that came out last year, Brian Banks, which I saw but didn't talk about on the show, I think this is the superior film.
which one is Brian Banks?
Is the one about the football player who
Oh,
was
right.
falsely accused of sexual assault.
It's
and
with
then-
Aldous Hodge, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a much better movie, and I think it helps that it's addressing a larger issue like the death penalty, but I also think it's just done in a more compelling way. I think having the same director who worked on Short Term 12, which I really liked.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's why Brie Larson's in it.
Yes, because she's in all
Okay.
his films.
Okay.
Also the Glass Castle.
See, I didn't like Short Term 12. So
Oh, I did. I thought it was one of the more underrated movies that came out that year.
I like Stephanie Beatrice because you got to hear her real voice.
Stephanie Beatrice is amazing.
She's amazing.
Love her.
Love her.
Love her on BoJack. Love her on Brooklyn
Mhm.
Nine-Nine.
But I
Anyway.
think that this is a more compelling wrongful convictions movie because it really hits you where it hurts. And I think probably the strongest performance, in my opinion, is Rob Morgan. Particularly
Absolutely.
when his character is going to the electric chair.
Oh,
That
my
whole
God.
part of
Oh my
the movie just hit me where it
God.
hurt and continued to hit me where it hurt.
You know,
And it was just so
sobbing.
compelling. It just made me, it haunted me after the
Yes.
movie was
Yeah.
over.
Yep.
first of all, he is unreal in that part. But also, I really appreciated that they went down that road.
Yes.
And I mean, this is
Yes.
clearly an anti-capital punishment movie, so
Mhm.
why wouldn't you go down that road? But you could have done it like super and this is just like, it's just matter of fact,
Mm-hmm.
and you can just see the horror that it is. Now, I mean, obviously it's played to be horrible because it's horrible, but
Right.
but when Michael B. Jordan gets into that car and he can't even talk,
Oh my God.
I was just like, dude, that's like what you did with this scene. You could have done the big whatever, and you chose to fucking rein it in and just be
Mhm.
speechless. And man, what a powerful moment.
Absolutely. And
Mhm.
when all of the other inmates are banging on the bars so
Yeah.
so he can hear piping through the system that he's not alone as he dies. Like,
Yeah.
good God. Like, I was
know.
just a wreck.
Yeah.
It
I'm actually
was-
getting a little emotional
I know.
thinking about it.
Yeah. It's really an amazing performance, and it's really deftly handled from a direction standpoint. It's just it's haunting. And the thing is
Mhm.
about this character is he did what he was accused of. Like he
Yeah.
did plant a bomb. He wasn't in necessarily intending that it kill, I think, a little girl.
Mhm.
Kill
But
anyone.
yeah, or kill anyone. But yeah, that's what it's so tragic. You have somebody here who clearly at their point in their life was not in a good space from mental health, haunted by PTSD, and he did this thing that he regrets, and now, he's losing his life over it.
Right. And I mean, he was a Vietnam veteran, and it just goes to show that this country does not do veterans justice at all, and does not do people with mental illness justice, and
No.
punishes them, and particularly if you are poor and a black or brown person. And yeah, the film, I love what the film is saying message wise, but I also completely agree that, I mean, Rob Morgan, he's always so good, but he is just outstanding here.
Yeah,
And
He was
Michael B.
my
Jordan
vote
too.
for best supporting in my Bafka ballot for
Oh,
this
yeah.
role. He
If-
just was incredible.
He would have made it into. This is one of those movies I just didn't have time to see.
Same, yeah.
And and maybe Michael B. Jordan would have made it in. But what I also appreciated about this movie, and I have seen this a little bit in other movies, but I know this from a couple of times when I was doing court reporting, that when you do appeals, not when you do appeals, that's appellate court, but when you file motions, et cetera, generally speaking, depending on your state, the fucking trial judge who ruled against you is the person who's ruling on these new motions. So you're never going to make it out of there.
Yeah.
Because that judge is never going to be
Right.
like, oh, you make a good point that I fucked up.
I changed my mind.
The
Yeah.
system is already heavily stacked against anybody trying to file an appeal. It's just extremely hard to overturn decisions.
It's kind of like becoming president and then realizing he needs to be removed. It's
Yes.
really difficult to get
Yeah,
him out.
it's incredibly difficult to do on the state and federal level to have your conviction overturned, which is why this story is such a victory for Brian Stevenson, played by Michael B. Jordan, is that he does his client Jamie Foxx in this instance is
Who is amazing also.
So good.
he is able to get the ruling reversed, and he is able to go and live his life, which.
Mhm.
And then it's one of those like horrible situations where it's like, then he lived a few more years and died in real life, which
Right.
was fucking tragic. It's kind of like Loving in that case. It was like,
Yeah.
they fought this hard battle, and then it's like one of them died a couple years later. It's like, fucking A.
Yeah.
That's funny. I thought about Loving while watching this.
Yeah.
too. That's so funny that
It's
you
like
brought
this
it up.
really
Yeah.
important legal battle, and you
Yep.
win, and then it's
But
just
you
like
don't
death
really
comes for us
win.
all. So it's
Yep.
like, oh,
Yeah.
fucking A, really?
Yeah.
But this movie also points to the good choices one makes when telling a story like this. Is like, all right, we're going to make an anti-capital punishment movie. Well, all right, well, how are we going to do that? Well, you've got to just make it as specific to one person as possible, in this case, Jamie Foxx's case, and then you can just sort of explore the systemic bullshit from that way and just go out instead of going out in.
Well, that's what's so interesting is that, I mean, really, this, and of course this has been happening more and more, but especially this year, there were so many, or I feel so many films that dealt with prison industrial complex, death penalty, police brutality, Queen and Slim, Clemency, Brian Banks, and this. And the thing about Clemency is that is also, like I told you guys before when I first saw it, that the first 15 minutes is just an execution, like from start to
Yeah.
finish, and it's gutting and it's brutal. And I think the two films work well in tandem. They would be a horrifying double feature.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to think about each director's choices to explore capital punishment and prisons and what's wrong with them and what's broken and what doesn't work and which choices
Right.
Each director makes different choices, but they're both looking at it at an individual level. Like Clemency is looking at, the warden and one inmate's case and how he's trying to appeal. And this also, is looking at, lawyer and one inmate trying to appeal. So.
Oh, totally. And I think the thing that's even more fucked up in this specific case is this is in Alabama, and there's a rule in Alabama where a judge can actually overrule the verdict in a way that I think he was just originally Jamie Foxx's character was sentenced to life in prison, and the
Right.
judge was like, "Nah, dude, you're gonna be executed."
Yes,
Like he's
yes,
like, "I have
yep.
the power to say, nope, I'm punishing you differently, and now you're gonna be executed."
And that's what's so, it's obviously disturbing, but it's also more disturbing because our legal system and our government system are arguably designed for checks and balances, and
Arguably.
that is the key. And here it's just a flagrant human
Misuse
rights
of power.
Right, exactly, and a flagrant human rights abuse. It's just revolting.
Yeah, I mean, another one of the dangers of a movie like this is when you think, all right, you can't have it's got black and white's not the right term, especially in this movie. Nuance. There's got to be the nuance has to be like in there to show, in Jamie Foxx's case, how he was just railroaded from the beginning. The one thing that kind of struck me as like was I didn't really care for Tim Blake Nelson's performance as the other guy who put the finger on him. It was just too much of a character performance in a movie that is otherwise very subtle.
Yeah, it felt very much
performance-wise.
like a caricature.
Yes.
And not an actual person.
Right. And
Yeah.
then when you hear the tapes, and I don't know what those tapes in real life sound like, but when you hear him saying on the tape, I'm not going to lie, and it's just like, come on, man. That's just too easy for this movie.
Right.
Yeah, well, I think more people need to understand how in situations where there's interrogations and they interrogate somebody for hours and hours and hours, it's like you could get anybody to say anything by
Exactly.
withholding food, water, bathroom breaks, and
Yep.
doing whatever to convince them to come around to your narrative.
It's very much like when it's depicted, I would say, accurately or well, when torture is depicted, like you can't rely on it for anything because people will say anything just to get, the pain to stop. And it's like the same thing here. When you're interrogating someone, they just will say anything because you can manipulate them.
Two movies where they do that well: In the Name of the Father, with the false confession, and I can't remember the second one that I was going to say. Oh well. But In the Name of the Father, they show Daniel Day-Lewis basically being beaten, and whoever plays Paul Hill, I can't remember the actor's name, being beaten and Oh, L.A. Confidential. That's the other one. That whole opening 30 minutes is about that false confession.
Right.
That Edward Exley, gets like kudos for that he got out of those guys. Although I don't think that he knew he was getting false confession. But it's the whole like
he thought he was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm saying he knew he was lying to those guys because that's what he did. Did he know? He didn't know that they were not guilty, right?
No, he didn't. He thought that they were guilty.
So anyway, but that whole idea that police can lie to you about things is
It's so fucked up that they
that's
can do that.
insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, just mercy.
I mean, I think another compelling aspect to the story is Bryan Stevenson, who is a well-known lawyer, and he's been part of important cases. He was interviewed in the documentary 13th, if you've ever seen that. He's one of the people they talk to in that, which is really compelling. His background is interesting because in the film, like you see Michael B. Jordan's character, he's from he's from a family in Maryland that has, like a decent home, and like he seems like he comes from a middle class background, and the fact that he wants to move to Alabama to essentially start this nonprofit to defend people who need legal services. There's that great scene in the beginning where his mom is just so worried for him. What are you doing? This is crazy. Why are you going to go down south? Like you'll get killed down there.
Right.
And he almost does.
Yeah.
When he gets pulled over for no reason other than, I would say black while driving, which is true, but also they knew who he was when they were pulling him over and were trying to scare him.
Exactly.
So I think that adds a compelling element too, is that this character is leaving his comfort zone and he's purposefully putting himself in this situation, and it's that much harder because he could have a cushy job and he could be working in Maryland or Virginia or somewhere where he wouldn't have this problem.
He went to Harvard. Like he could go anywhere, and he chooses
the harder path.
Right, exactly.
And that's what's so impressive about it, is that he sticks to his guns, and he's doing important work that needs to be done in a place where he is needed, and otherwise there wouldn't be anybody there doing that.
Thinking about the cops pulling him over and how they wanted to scare him. I thought it was another scene that kind of stuck with me that I've been thinking about is when Michael B. Jordan first goes to the prison to talk to his clients.
Oh my God.
And he strip searched. Oh my God, it's horrid.
That is. And when they got to bend over and spread him, I was like, oh my God.
The
and
dehumanization.
I just I got choked up, and then I don't know what happened. I don't know whether that actually happened or what, but I mean, the fact that he basically just decided, scared as he was, he's like, that's a bridge too far. and then the corrections officer just backs down. I don't know what he decides not to make him do that. Whether he was, I don't know what the reasoning is, but just like I can't. I don't have the words.
But I think it is. I mean, it is horrible. But also watching Michael B. Jordan, who I think is such a brilliant actor, and watching his like physicality
His
in
face
that
can
moment.
do so many things.
Yes, watching his body language, his face, and how angry he is, but he's keeping it all under the surface.
Yeah.
So he can, remain calm, so he can help other people. Like it's just, it's so good.
Yeah.
He's always brilliant. I just love him.
Yes,
But
he's
yeah.
crossed over into my borderline great actor column.
I mean,
And that
without
is-
question.
Well, but that is reserved for actors who are still living, mostly.
I see.
So
I see, I see.
it's after they're gone, you assess and you say, Clint Eastwood, will you ever be there? No. But I mean, he's still alive, but he doesn't really
Oh, that
act
is
much
fair. That is
anymore.
fair. Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I just want to say, and I've loved Michael B. Jordan. I loved him in The Wire, but I actually loved him when he was on All My Children, and he was like a teenager, and he was amazing. He
Yeah.
was great, and he's still great, and I love him.
Well,
He just gets better and better.
I don't have much to say more about this, and maybe you guys do, but I did want to add that if you wanted to watch a super anti-capital punishment movie, which I think is the best one of its kind, it's a short film about killing, which at least one of you has to have seen, right? No?
No.
Have you? Okay. So Krzysztof Kieslowski, who did the Three Colors trilogy, he did the Decalogue, which was,
Yep.
all 1 hour movies about ostensibly the 10 Commandments each one. And he expanded 2 of them to features: short film about love, short film about killing. Short film about killing, we're not spoiler piecing that, so I would encourage you guys to watch that and just tell me what you think.
Okay. All right.
And I would
will.
encourage our
good.
audience to do that too.
I mean, I love any film that is a scathing condemnation of capital punishment, prison industrial complex, you name it. So I will definitely watch that.
I'm on your page.
Yeah. I have to say, I mean, it was at the very end of the film, but the quote about how for every 9 people on like
Yeah, 1
that
in
are
9.
1 in 9, executed, they could like, what is it? They could have gone free or whatever, or they were found innocent.
Yeah.
Just appalling. Just it's just disgusting. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway. But yes, but this was a I was gonna say an enjoyable film. I don't know if I would say enjoyable, but it was
No,
good,
it's
but it's a good film.
It's good.
Yes,
for
it's
sure.
an important film.
Mm-hmm.
It's a film people should be watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's good.
Well,
All right. I think. Do we have anything else to say before we?
I do not.
All right. Then let's move on to 1917
Yeah.
by Sam Mendes.
Yeah.
Which I have to admit I didn't watch.
Ah!
Oh, and also, it is not a sequel to 1916, the album by Motorhead.
Thank you for clarifying. I was
You-
really
you are
hung
welcome.
up about that.
You're welcome. We don't need to worry about Lemmy's input on this. So you didn't watch it.
No. I didn't.
Interesting.
I still need to
and,
see it.
and I'm not, not bad, Evan. Shame. I'm just, I would have been interested to see what you thought of it,
I intend to,
because it might be an Evan movie, but it might
but
not
it might
be.
not be.
Yeah, it's a maybe.
War movies, I feel like, can go either way. Like, I really liked Dunkirk when it came out.
Oh my God, I
know,
love Dunkirk.
I know a lot of people had very mixed opinions. I know you don't love Christopher Nolan.
But I love Dunkirk.
Dunkirk was
So
just so
same.
good.
I do not love Christopher Nolan either
Yeah.
at all, but I love Dunkirk, and the more I watch it, the more I love
Yeah,
it.
it's just one of those movies where it's like, oh, you made every right decision.
Yes!
Even the timelines. I thought that was going to be confusing. Nah.
No,
Nope.
it's genius.
Worked perfectly.
Genius.
And it also, I was always thought that Tom Hardy was great, but just watching what he can do with his eyes,
Oh my God, Tom Hardy is
yeah,
amazing in this.
and he's super hot. So,
I mean, there is that.
So
He is.
1917.
But actually, I'm glad we talked about Dunkirk, because I feel like, in a way, this is kind
It's
of
Dunkirky.
like it's Dunkirk meets Saving Private Ryan, kinda.
It's
Yeah.
Dunkirkian.
Yeah, it is Dunkirkian.
yeah, you got Arthurian, you got Dunkirkian,
Dunkirkegard.
Yeah, nice.
Kierkegaard. I like it.
Uh,
So I'm gonna go on a limb, and I'm gonna assume that this is a movie about World War One,
You are correct. You win.
I didn't
based
even-
on the year.
I don't even have anything that I was like, what can I say? No,
You're like, nope, it is.
it is, and it's a piece of it. We don't know actually. Sam Mendes had a grandfather who was a World War I veteran and used to tell him stories, and his other grandchildren stories about the war, and usually, as Sam Mendes has put it, in horrific detail. Like you can't believe some of the things he's telling an 11-year-old. But he said, I came to realize over time these are stories we need to hear because.
Yeah.
What I always find and I don't know much about World War One. That's not. I mean, I don't know much about anything, but I don't know much about World War
Wow.
One. But what is fascinating to me about World War One is how it's all just a series of bad decisions by people who were related. That's what always blows my mind. Is all of these people running these countries are cousins.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So there's that. And also, which this movie doesn't really get into, although you can see it on screen, how the technology has advanced to the point where you can just have the most horrific, brutal, fucking awful violence, but you don't have the medical technology to save those people's lives, which is
Right.
what is going on now.
Yep.
You've got all of these weapons that can just literally sever someone's whatever, and then they're not dying anymore and bleeding out. They're saving and living the rest of their life with one leg.
Right.
Which you can argue what's better, to die or to have a prosthetic limb. I've never served in combat. I don't know.
Is there any chemical warfare in this film, like
Not on
gassing
screen-
people
not on
or any of that
screen.
stuff? Because I
No.
feel like that was also a similarly terrifying
The old mustard
advancement.
gas.
Yes.
Introducing this new element of warfare that's pretty fucking scary.
I can't remember whether anybody mentions that, but it's not in the movie. Like, there's no
Yeah.
chemical warfare in this movie.
No, I don't recall anyone mentioning it either.
Yeah. The one death
is
that you really
interesting.
see on screen is a good old fashioned stabbing.
Stabby.
And when I say good old fashioned stabbing, I mean horrifying,
Oh,
fucking
good
brutal stabbing.
God.
like with like a
Which-
knife or like a bayonet or
It's
like
kind of like is it a bayonet? Does he steal his
a
bayonet?
Knife. I thought it was a knife.
So what happens is you got the two English soldiers who their task is to the Germans have retreated, and it's a fake retreat for all intents and purposes, and they are trying to lure the English into attacking them when really they've got 5 times the troop size, whatever. But anyway, as the two soldiers are going to the front line, what has become the front line, to deliver this message to this general who ends up being played by Benedict Cumberbatch.
And also one of the guys, his brother is in that battalion too.
His brother is a lieutenant in that battalion. A lieutenant, as the English would say. They're on this farm, and they're like, a farm. We should see if there's anybody living here or whatever. And then they see an air battle happening in the distance, and they're like, oh, one of our planes has shot down a German plane. And then they realize the German plane is going to crash on or near them.
Oh my God, that's terrifying.
Oh, yeah. And this is what's one of those things that you just think, there are rules. I always think about that line in Saving Private Ryan when Jeremy What's-His-Face says, it's against the goddamn rules when Barry Pepper wants to shoot the German soldier, or one of them wants to shoot the German soldier. I don't remember which one it is. It's against the goddamn rules. I don't know what the rules were in World War I, but there is morality. There is right and wrong.
Right.
And so because they're decent human beings, these two English guys, and I'm not saying they're all decent all the English soldiers are decent because they were on the winning side. I'm just saying these two guys are portrayed as decent, upstanding young men. This plane crashes. They realize that the German pilot is still alive and is going to burn to death horribly, and they rescue him. And what do they get for their trouble?
Well, one of them doesn't want to rescue him. He wants
That's
to put him
true.
out of his misery and shoot him.
Well,
so.
after they rescue him
Well,
from
that's
the plane.
true. After they rescue him from
They
the plane.
pull him
Yes,
from the
yes.
plane, and the guy who ends up living through the encounter, Schofield is the character's name. He says we should put him out of his misery because
Yeah.
he's burned so badly
Right.
that he's going to just be in pain and scarred, whatever, for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And then the other kid is like, nah, man, we didn't fucking kill him. What are you, crazy? Go get him some water. So Schofield
Yeah.
goes to what they think is maybe a well that still has water in it. And you just hear like, bah! And you see Schofield getting stabbed like way off in the distance. Not Schofield. You see the other guy getting stabbed way off in the distance. And the way it's played is like you don't really, and this is the thing about stabbings, you know, sometimes you hit the right thing and you're dead. You know, and
Yeah.
sometimes you
Right.
get stabbed 46 times and you survive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and this is he gets stabbed once and it's over. But then you watch him die for 3.5 minutes in his you know, partner's arms, and it's truly sad. And what I was thinking was, they've just saved this guy's life, and he has decided he doesn't want to be a POW. I don't know what he thought his fate was going to be. I don't know whether he thought they were going to kill him, because you get the idea that this German soldier, or he's not a soldier, he's a pilot. He doesn't speak English, just like they don't speak German. So nobody knows what's going on. So
Uh-huh.
he just decides, it's like, fuck it, I'm going to take things into my own
Yeah.
hands.
I'm going to go out and take one of them with me.
Yep.
Yep. And so that's what happens. And so the kid who dies never gets to see his brother, the lieutenant, because
Yep.
he dies. Yeah. And just watching, and this is one of the things, I don't know if it's makeup, I don't know if it's special effects, but watching the color leave his face as he's dying,
Yep.
it's just like, you actually feel like you're watching someone die. It's really horrible
Yep.
in a very cinematic way.
By the way, just on a side note, that guy is played by Dean Charles Chapman, and it's so funny seeing him because I think of him as Tommen Baratheon on Game of Thrones. But he's having quite the year because he was also in Blinded by the Light. He was also
Blinded by the light.
he's also in The King, and he's in this. So it's like, good for you, buddy. After Game of Thrones,
I'm just going to go ahead, by the way, and say that the line is wrapped up like a deuce.
Another runner in the night.
Yeah.
nice.
So just, you know, there are people who think it's douche. I don't know why. Maybe because that's what Manfred Mann sounded like. But so 1917. Yeah, so it's the big thing is it's made to look like it's one long
Right.
continuous take. Sort of, people call it real time, but it's not, because
It's not
there's
real
one
time.
point where Schofield gets shot at, and
And it goes to black. Yeah.
yeah, the force of the bullet, it hits his helmet and it knocks him over, and he
Mm-hmm.
gets knocked out. The bullet doesn't pierce his skin and glances off his helmet, but he hits his head when he falls down, and then he's passed out. And you don't actually know how much time has passed. The whole movie is supposed to, they have roughly 6 or 7 hours to get from where they are at the beginning to where this battle is going to happen.
Right.
So the movie is 2 hours flat. So it's not like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in real time. It's
Right.
not like Empire by fucking Andy Warhol.
So I wanted to talk about the kind of one take look of the cinematography, because Dave, I know you were saying before that it's been called a gimmick, and I wanted to know, I don't agree with that, and I want to know your thoughts on that.
Well, it is a gimmick, I think.
Well, I mean it is, but I mean, do you think it's a gimmick in the sense that it doesn't work and that it's just
No. What I was going to say
Oh, sorry.
was it is a gimmick, but I think it really works. I mean, I don't think that you can do something like this and not call it a gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
But does it transcend the regular definition of that word? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I was about a half hour into the movie, I would say, when I was like, wait a minute, they haven't cut. Oh, huh.
Yeah.
And so to me, now that I've noticed it, but you've done a good enough job telling the story for 30 minutes that I haven't even thought about it yet.
Right.
And so, and when I say it, it's not one take. It's like clearly, like if I watch it again, I'm probably it's kind of like that fucking horrible piece of shit Birdman. You can see the seams in that movie. And I would argue that movie that is one long take is, the takes are so obvious. Or the cuts are so obvious. But anyway, that's another story for another time. This, I could probably spot some of them, but maybe not all of them. I don't know. There are some that are obviously, it's like you go into the back of someone's coat and then you come out. Okay.
Right.
Like, the old Hitchcock rope trick, but, which does have one obvious cut, by the way.
Yes.
But, yeah, I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about it once I knew that's what was happening, because I did spend time thinking to myself, wow, does this movie have to be intricately choreographed?
Right.
You
right.
know, I mean, on practical sets.
Absolutely. So speaking on the one take, or the look of the one take, I also did not think it was gimmicky. And I mean, it is a gimmick, but gimmicky in the sense that it's a detriment to it.
Right.
I saw it as, it gives it a sense of urgency. It gives it a sense
Yes.
of relentlessness. And I really appreciated that. And I mean, and Roger Deakins' cinematography is
He's
always
unreal.
beautiful. It's gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
But the
Huge fan of his.
absolutely.
Sam Mendes said in an interview, like, it's like, did you want to work with Roger Deakins? He's like, I always want to work for Roger Deakins, but sometimes he's working with the Coens.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
But speaking on the choreography of the scenes, that scene when Schofield is running to get to
Oh, and he gets knocked over?
yes, and he gets knocked over and he gets knocked over again, and he's like running against the current of
All-
troops.
All accidental knockovers.
Ah, that was, but it just looked so good.
Yeah,
it's
it looks-
just
it
so
looks legit.
good. It does, yeah.
And there are a couple of things in the movie that are kind of derivative of other war movies, like
Sure.
the singing scene, which when they got to that, I was kind of like, but
Seen that a lot,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I think on the whole, I think the guy, I can't remember the actor's name, so I'm going to look it up here. George McKay, who plays Schofield. I don't know what he's from. I vaguely recognize him, but I can't tell you from what. Man, he's good.
He's really good.
He's
in
another one of those
this.
guys who does things with his face that you're just like, And also, one of the things that was really fascinating was when Schofield gets to that abandoned town and there's those like there's German soldiers in there, but he kills like not a German. It's not a German who he kills. I don't know what, or maybe he kills the German, but the other guy is not German. I don't remember. One of them is not technically the enemy,
right,
but is in cahoots with the enemy. It's very strange, and it's left deliberately vague.
exactly.
So, and then there's the scene where he comes across all the bloated, drowned bodies. Gross.
Ew.
And then there's also when he meets the French woman who has the baby,
I
which
know.
is so sad.
And it's not even her
It's not her
baby.
baby. I know. When he asks like, "What's the baby's name?" she's like, "I don't know." And it's like so sad.
Yeah. She's
It's
like, "You've got to stay,"
awful.
and he's like, "I can't stay."
right.
And you can tell that he's like the kind of person who would stay if he didn't have a
100%.
larger problem.
right.
Of note, by the way, about the one take thing, I said to showed it to my, I don't know if I'm allowed to let my parents see it.
Oh.
But we watched it in my home. So it's not like I fucking gave them the movie
Yeah.
and said, have fun. My mom and dad live in a place where there are not a lot of movie theaters, and this is the kind of movie that would be right up both of their alleys. So I said, do you guys want to watch 1917? And my dad was like, oh, totally. So we watched it, and my mom really liked it too. And I said to my dad, did you notice anything, blah, blah, blah about it? And he said, oh, he told me the things he liked about it. And I said, did you notice that it was made to look like it was all one long scene? And he stopped and he thought about it for a moment, and he said, no, I didn't notice that. He's like, now that you've told me that, yeah, I realized that. But he's like, I didn't think about it at all during the time I was watching it. So he just got lost in the story and went with it.
But that's what I think is great. And I think that's what can separate, great technique from perhaps all good technique, but when the story is lackluster, because you shouldn't necessarily notice it. You should just feel it.
Yeah.
It should just kind of be in the ether and the ambiance of it. But you shouldn't be like, oh, that's one take. Like, I mean, unless you're, of course, looking for it or have a, perhaps trained eye. But yeah, I love that your father wasn't,
Yeah.
noticing that, but he was just so, absorbed and engrossed in the story.
And he knows his war movies, so
there you go.
Yeah.
What I love, there are a couple of things. I think the cameos are really great in this.
Really great in a not
Really
showy
great.
way.
Yes, with Colin Firth.
My
kinda-
parents didn't even realize that was Colin Firth.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
yeah, he's great.
And
in it.
and my mother loves Colin Firth.
Yeah, and Mark Strong is great.
He's great in a
Yeah.
non-asshole role. It's always nice to see
Yes.
Mark Strong play a
I know.
legit good guy.
I agree. And
And when he says, "Make sure there are witnesses," when you give
Yes.
him the orders,
oh, that's chilling,
my
and I love
fucking
it.
heart sank when he
Yep.
said that. I was like,
Yep.
"Oh no!"
Yep,
you
I
know?
love that.
Because it's like when you see like the road signs is like no turn on the red arrow. It's because one person made the turn on the red arrow, so he knows. Either he experienced or his best friend experienced someone ignore orders because there was nobody there.
Right, exactly. So yeah, that's a great line. I love that.
Yeah.
I also love Richard Madden's performance as the brother of the
It's
kid
great.
who stabbed.
So
He's
great.
so good. When he has his hand outstretched holding his like dog tags or whatever
Yeah.
the equivalent is, and he's just like trying not to break down because he knows his brother is dead.
Yeah.
So good.
Well, and then
so good.
And then when Schofield goes down and he gets out his personal items, and you see that he's got a wife and family.
that you didn't even know about. No!
And it's just like, oh my God, he's actually like 23. He's
Yes.
not 17.
No.
Oh my God.
No.
And he talked about going home
Right,
and how he didn't
right.
want to go home again because it was so difficult to leave. And I just think,
Exactly.
he's want to sleep in his own
Right.
bed.
And I was just like, oh, his parents. He didn't want to make his mom cry.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's
no.
like, no.
He's got his own family.
Oh.
Oh, it was
Evan, you
so
have to see
good.
this movie.
This movie's so
That sounds
good.
like quite the reveal.
Yeah, this movie's really good. And
Yeah.
I'm very hit or miss on war films, so I wasn't like super jazzed to see it, but I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And I was so pleasantly surprised. I thought this was a really fantastic film.
The only reason I went to see this is because this is so stupid. I had the time, like the kids were with Joan, and I was like, all right, I need to see this because I haven't seen enough movies this year. And there's a Shake Shack across the street from the theater. And I am not a big fan of Shake Shack. I'm not one of those people who's like, you got to go to fucking Shake Shack. But I was like, I haven't had a burger and fries in like 3 months. So I'm going to have burger and fries.
Yeah.
That's right. Treat yourself.
And it was totally worth it.
Treat
Wait a minute.
yourself to 1917.
Yeah.
Now I want to know where the Shake Shack was. Was it in Wellesley?
No, this was at the Icon.
Oh,
So it was in the Seaport.
Seaport, got it. Because in Wellesley, there's a movie theater with a Shake Shack right next to it.
Yeah, this is like catty corner to it. So.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough.
Or as some people would say incorrectly, kitty corner.
Mm.
I always grew up saying kitty corner, but anyway.
Maybe it's a Connecticut thing. I don't know.
Maybe. Oh, those weird Connecticut people.
Those weird nutmeggers.
Mm.
But anyway, Dave, what do you say? Is there anything else to say about 1917?
No, one of the best movies of the year. I mean, sometimes I understand when people are like, this great movie that everybody else loves, I don't like. This is one of those where I'm like, I don't know why you wouldn't. I mean, if it's not your cup of tea, it's not your cup of tea. But to say that it's like a bad movie or Sam Mendes is a bad filmmaker, so he's made a couple of James Bond movies. I don't know his entire body of work. I know him mostly as ex-Mr. Kate Winslet. But, whatever.
Yeah, I was going to say Revolutionary Road is what I think of him as.
Right. There you go.
Those four. Yeah. Which, again, because when he was with Kate
Kate
Winslet.
So
Yeah.
I think it's I mean, is it going to go down as one of the best war films ever? I don't know. I mean, how many fucking war films are there? But
Well, it's interesting you say that because as I was watching it, I always think about this with war films. I'm like, do we really need another war film on World War I or World War II? And what I really and it's kind of thinking about this. I also was thinking about because I just saw Birds of Passage, which is about the drug trade in
Yeah.
Colombia, and I was thinking do we need another drug film? And
You have to know.
I would argue with Birds of Passage, which is a great film that we didn't talk about. It's from an indigenous family's perspective, which is fascinating. And I would argue here in 1917, yes, it is.
Yeah.
I do think it's a valid entry into the war film genre because it is showing something a little different.
yeah, and all the World War I veterans are dead, so there's nobody to tell us these stories anymore. So
That's also true.
And we've gotten to a point, certainly in American history, when there's no education budget in most states, so you don't
Yes.
learn about things,
Also true.
which I'm not even going to get into that whole horse shit. But Americans just don't. It's like the world is RoboCop to Americans. They just want their omni-consumer products. Tune into our Patreon. So,
Nice segue.
yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, and I would say that, especially considering the state of where we are now with our government and society, it's always worthy to watch stories about the rise of fascism. So,
totes.
yeah.
What always blows my mind about World War I and World War II, by the way, are 21 years separate the end of World War I and the beginning of World War II. And if you think about when Hitler came to power, 16 years.
Right?
That's 14. Did my math wrong.
It's,
Absolutely crazy.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's wild. In
Crazy.
not a good way. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Anyway, so I've said my stuff.
And it was good stuff to
Thank
say.
you.
All right. So that's going to do it for this episode of Spoiler Piece Theater. Please tune in. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. You can go to our website, spoilerpiece.com. You can find us on Facebook at Spoiler Piece Theater. You can find us on Twitter and follow us at Spoiler Piece.
Yep.
And you can also call us at
86221 peace.
That's right. We love listening to your messages. We want to hear what you think about the show. We want to know what movies you're loving. We want you to say hi,
Yeah.
whatever
All that good
you want
stuff.
to say.
And-
Exactly.
And I might call your messages massages because I like to mispronounce words on purpose.
for funsies.
Yeah.
And be sure to rate us. That really helps us out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you love what we're doing, if you love hearing us talk about movies as much as we love talking about movies, go to our Patreon and please support us. For $5 a month, you get to hear exclusive audio content. This week, we talked about the 1987 classic RoboCop,
Yes, we did.
and it was so good. You know you want to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
And for $10 a month, you get to pick a film that we watch and talk about.
Which was how we got to RoboCop.
Yes.
And I would like to say, would somebody please do an animated version about a chicken and call it RoboCoop?
That would be...
Maybe I'll do it. I don't know.
You should. That would be brilliant.
Your move, Cluck.
Everything that I might have irritated one of you with has just been redeemed in this last 15 seconds. Yeah.
All is forgiven.
Yeah.
I can't. There was nothing to forgive. It was
Yeah.
all great. I'm Megan Kearns. I'm a freelance writer and critic, editor of Bitchflix, and a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. And you can follow me on Twitter at OpinionSWorld.
My name is Dave Riedel. I write for Salt Lake City Weekly, Orlando Weekly. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. And you can follow me on, I was going to say on Spoiler Piece. Duh. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd as Dave Sees Movies.
My name is Evan Crean. I'm still recovering from Rob Morgan's performance in Just Mercy.
Oh,
Yeah.
so good.
Oh boy. And yes, I'm editor for The Independent. I'm co-chair of BAFCA and co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living. And you can follow me on Twitter and on Letterboxd as Real Recon.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.